So we took a massive risk purchasing this E63. As you guys know, this car doesn't start or drive. It has taken a big hit to the front of the car, and a lot of the parts that were sat along this region here have been damaged in the process. Z, what do we need to do to get this car started?
I mean, before we start even putting power down to it, to check if it will start, we're going to check that the crank pulley actually turns. There's a few belts running on the side, like the alternator belt and that AC pump belt as well. So we'll remove them because they are quite jammed, and free up that pulley and just turn the engine slightly to make sure it's not seized up. From there, we could give it some power and see if it'll actually start.
We started off by removing the tensioner bracket that holds the bolt. The first belt was easy to remove, but the second belt was a bit difficult as it was wedged behind the crank hub, so we had to cut the belt. The next step was to check if the engine spins. Using a socket wrench, we turned the engine without any issues. This indicates the engine is not seized. Before starting the car, we need to tape up any exposed cables, as this could lead to a short circuit or a blown fuse. The battery was absolutely knackered, so we had to attach our charger to it. Once we had sufficient charge, we tried to turn the ignition on, but nothing was turning on apart from the interior light.
So we're looking at the fuses. One of the main fuses is actually blown. So I looked under the fuse box and found a weird wire which don't look too OEM. So I pulled the fuse box apart, and guess what, guys? We found a tracker right here. So it has got a relay system on it. So I'm guessing the previous owner's got a cut-off tracker with a relay where you can't even put the ignition on to actually start it. So what we'll do is we'll disconnect the system and take it from there and see if we can get some power down to the dashboard. So we stripped down the tracker system, which was in the engine bay fuse box. So that's all been done, but we're still not actually getting no power to the car.
We decided to follow the cable that was attached to the tracker, and this led us to the driver's side footwell.
And this cable here, guys, this actually came from where the tracker was. So on the engine bay, where you got the tracker, just below it, you've got this cable here, which takes you down to the driver's side footwell, and also it takes you down to the passenger side footwell as well. So we're going to trace this cable, we're going to see where it takes us.
While removing the carpet from the passenger side, we found the sponge attached to the carpet was soaked full of water.
So check it out, guys, look what we find. We found another tracker. I'm assuming it's either linked to that one in the engine bay or there's additional one. So some people actually put two trackers in the cars. So if one gets ripped out, they'll get a signal to know exactly where the car is with another tracker. So I think that's another tracker right there. And that wire coming from the driver's side is actually linked into this these wires right here. So we'll cut them off and join them together, get rid of that, and also get rid of this tracker right here. So whilst we're disconnecting the tracker, we also found a backup battery for it and also the ghost immobilizer. So in order to get any power to the vehicle, we need to disconnect all these items.
After removing the ghost immobilizer and tracker, we tried the ignition and nothing was turning on.
So remove both trackers, one inside here and one at the footwell of the passenger side. And by doing so on this side, I think we've cut 2-3 wires that we should not have cut. So we're going to reconnect them and see if we can get some power.
After soldering the wires back together, we tried the ignition again. We still couldn't get a response from the ignition. Although we couldn't visibly see water, the sponge in the footwell was absolutely full of water.
So as you guys know, we're still not getting no power down to the instrument cluster and the ignition's not turning on. So we pulled the carpet apart, guys, and there's been a lot of water around this region. And you can see right here, this is our can line system. So these are different modules and they communicate with each other. So what we're going to do is you got low can and you got high can on each side. So we measured the resistance in them, which should be roughly around about 60 ohms. If it's higher than 60 or lower than 60 with a big number, then we'll know that we got an issue right here. There's another can line system right here which we've taken apart. You can see there's some watermarks right there, so that could be a short right there. So what we'll do is we'll leave that to a side first and test these lines and take it from there.
One by one we checked all our connections, showing a reading of around 60. Everything seemed fine, so we gave everything a clean. We came across quite a few plugs that had water damage.
So once we cleaned the plug right here, the pin actually broke. It's actually corroded that bad and it just literally broke and the wire come out from the back of it. So what we'll do as a temporary repair is just bridge the wire over onto this adapter right here. And you see there's a lot of corrosion around this area right here. So what we'll do is as a temporary repair, just bridge it and see if we can get some light down to the instrument cluster.
Check it out, guys. I have given the car a proper clean, so I got rid of all that mold that was on the seats, the dash, the steering. So yeah, a lot of that mold has gone now, but the car still needs a proper clean, but that's the least of our worries right now. The main thing is doing the wiring in the passenger side footwell. So Z's on it now.
So I've just connected this plug back up now. We've also bridged them wires. So we get the booster connected and hopefully you should get some light down to the instrument cluster.
Yeah, the cluster's on now.
Is it?
Yeah, it's working. The cluster's finally on, and so is the center screen.
I wonder why the airbag light's on.
We received delivery for the oil feed pipes. It was now time to fit them up and try starting the car.
Right, so everything's filled up, guys. We've topped up the engine as well with some oil. So now it is the moment of truth. We're going to see if this car starts.
We might have to crank it a few times just to get that oil pumping around the engine. Once that's done, then hopefully it'll start. I don't think it'll start straight away, but we'll give it a try.
Okay, guys, let's do this. Let's see if this actually works.
The main thing is actually, checking if we can get it, cranking and turning over. Ignition's on. Foot's on the brake.
Nothing.
Does that brake light work on the back?
Yeah, the light's on. The brake light works.
So just checking the starter motor fuses. So you looked around here, so it's a number 113 30 amp and number 127 5 amp. So they are in the engine bay, which is right here. So we'll quickly check them now. That looks alright. Is this sitting right? So we checked all the fuses and the relays, everything seems to be all good. So I've checked the starter motor and it's not actually getting live to it. A lot of the new Mercedes, I've done a bit of research into it, a lot of the new Mercedes, they don't actually get live going towards the starter motor because they got a crash data stored on it. So I've plugged the diagnostic machine in, we'll get into Mercedes and see if we can reset the crash data and get it running.
To clear the crash data, it was quite simple. We tapped the last option, press continue, and pressed OK. This should allow the car to start.
So the crash data has all been reset, the booster pack's all charged and ready to go. So let's give this a try and fire this beast up. last diagnostic machine we actually used didn't work, so we got an hotel machine here. Hopefully when we go into Mercedes, that should actually pick up the crash data straight away.
We had a friend come down to help us out, but even then we still couldn't get it started.
So we tried 2 diagnostic machines and they both failed, so we can't get it running. I've got an app on my phone, we're going to try that and see if that actually works. If not, we'll have to dig into it more. The steering rack wires are actually cut. I mean, something as stupid as that could actually stop it from starting up as well. But before we do that, we'll give this a try.
We soon realised the crash data was already clear and we most likely have an issue elsewhere. The steering rack did have a split cable, so we rejoined the cable, we went through the loom, repaired any damaged cables that we found, and also we reconnected the radar to see if it helps start the car. And again, we were unsuccessful.
So we found the button for the stop-start switch, and so this obviously will activate the start button, which will activate the starter motor to start the car. So these 2 wires that are running off it that are teed in are connected to the tracker system. So I don't know how we missed these wires out, so we're going to probably cut them wires off and do fresh connections, because the wires look like they burnt out a bit as well. So we'll do that, then hopefully connect it all up and we could get it going.
Things aren't looking good. We've tried to start the car, it's still not starting. So we've got a feeling it is going to be some kind of electrical issue. So what we're going to do now is we are going to be stripping both driver and passenger seats, as well as the carpets as well, guys. So we've got easy access to the cables on both driver and passenger side.
After both seats were removed, it was a lot easier to see the wet patches in the carpet. The carpet was tucked under the center console, so we had to remove the center console to get to the carpet. Removing the center console is quite straightforward. To start off, guys, you want to remove the rubber grommets, then you want to take a T20 and undo the 2 screws underneath. This piece will come straight off, exposing 2 more T20 screws that you need to remove. Now you simply lift the center panel and all the plugs will need to be disconnected. Any cables attached to the center console will need to be removed as well. Located in the top left and the top right corner of the center console, there will be a T20 screw that will need to be removed. The last step is to remove the 2 10mm nuts, which are located in the armrest underneath the carpet. Because of the amount of water the carpet had absorbed, it was quite challenging actually trying to remove the carpet out of the car. A lot of water was just sat on the floor on both sides. With wires covered in water, this build had become even more difficult.